Goodfellas RC Club back at you today. We're going to do a little quick soldering video. Now this isn't a professional guide by no means. This is just one good fella out in his shop doing soldering the way he does it. So you might not agree with everything I do, and that's fine. I don't really care. It's what works for me. I made a post the other day on the club site, and a few of the guys in there said, man, I wish I can't even do it that good. And it was a picture of what my 7-year-old soldered. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just toss together a little video here, and that way you guys can see what I'm doing, what I use, and we can go from there. It takes a lot of practice. It sounds stupid, but it's not as easy as it looks. So first off, things I don't use anymore. I bought a soldering iron from a big chain store. This is a little Weller. Heats up to 900 degrees. I was like, man, that's plenty. That'll work just fine. Well, the problem with it is it's only 18 watts. And the problem with that is when you're heating the wire up, it takes too long for the wire to heat because it absorbs the heat out of the tip faster than what it can replenish itself. So therefore, when I'd be out here trying to hook up a battery connector or something, it was taking me like 10-15 minutes, maybe 20, to even get a halfway decent solder job done on a battery connector, and that just wasn't working. So first off, throw these in the trash. You don't need them. Second thing you're going to want to do, you're going to just want to bite the bullet, kind of like you do with your maintenance gear. Whenever you know what, I need a mat to work on. You get up on cowrcs.com and you order that mat, and you're happy you did it. So same thing with solder. Basically what you work with is going to help you out a lot. Now there is some things I know cheaper stuff works just fine, but this is one of the things I truly believe that you need to spend a little extra money on. This is the Track Power 9 or TK950. It's the dial version, analog, whatever you want to call it. Now, the thing with it was $65 shipped off of Tower Hobbies with your membership code. So that's fairly cheap. It comes with this nice little stand over here that your soldering iron goes into. So that has been a big improvement for me. Another thing that's really helped out a lot was this little helping hands device. It's got a nice little light here on it. Kind of helps me do what I'm hold the wires and stuff when I'm trying to do it. It came with this big magnifying glass thing that sits up here on the top of it, but I find this to be more of a pain in the butt than anything, because we're not working on a circuitry board. We're soldering some wires to a motor or a battery. So get you a helping hands device, because that's a big help. You're going to need some solder. I just use this plain lead-free resin core solder from Lowe's or your hardware store, wherever. It works just fine for what I'm doing. Another thing I found that helps me a lot is this water-soluble flux. I use the crap out of this stuff. Flux is your friend from what I've heard, and it has been my friend since I've been trying to learn how to solder, and I've gotten pretty decent at it. So there's that. Obviously we're going to need some wires here and a battery connector and stuff that we're going to use. So there's that stuff. So let me get this camera. One last thing before we move this camera. This is your CowRC mat. You do not want to do any kind of soldering directly on this mat. You will melt the vinyl top on it, and you will be a very unhappy camper. So please don't do that. I like to use these junk magazines that Traxxas sends out every once in a while. I always lay that down. I do my soldering work on top of it. So let me get this camera moved and reset up, and we'll start doing the soldering stuff. Alright, got the camera reset back up here in front of my helping hands. Got my flux sitting here. Like I said, this is your friend. Use it well. What we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of flux on the end of a wire. We're going to stick it here in our little helping hands. We're going to dip the other one in this wire, or the wire in the flux. And we're going to stick it about right there, just so you can see everything. Hopefully that's halfway in focus. We're going to take our soldering tip. You want to make sure this is clean. They have these nice little wire brushes at the store. I generally just kind of brush the tip off, run it through some of this flux over here. Move that up there in the camera. so you know that's good and hot. We're going to take a little bit of our solder, and we're going to do what they, from what I understand, is called tinning the tip. So we're just going to put a little bit of solder right here on the tip of the soldering iron. If I can get her to go. There she goes. So get that done. We're going to take this and we're just going to push it. It's going to be a little difficult for me because I don't normally do it at this angle, but we're going to hold it to the back side of this wire here. Get that wire heated up. And we're going to put the solder on. And what happens when that wire gets hot enough, that solder is going to suck up into that wire. Just like so. And I'll get you a picture of that so you can see a little closer up. We'll go ahead and do this other one real quick. Get that good and hot. Get that to soak up that wire. Oop, lost my hot spot on my iron. And it's going to be a butt on me, so we'll just redo that and get some more soldering on the iron here, and we'll try this again. There she goes. Always important to keep everything nice and clean. Use it well. Usually works a little better. Now, I'm going to get the camera repositioned here and take a picture of the soldering. That way you can see it. Basically what happens when that wire heats up to the same temperature that it needs for that solder to melt, it's going to suck it up in that wire. So I'll get you a picture and be right back with you. Got the camera resituated here. I'm going to try to get some of that stuff out of the way. We got the battery thing here, the connector for the Traxxas plug. We're going to hit our soldering tip back on the flux. We're going to come in here and get some solder put out there on the end of our iron. And we're going to take this plug and we're going to dip the end of it in some flux because, well, this flux stuff just seems to make everything work better. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay my soldering iron right on the very edge of this plug, or the connector piece. And I'm going to heat that up. And there's a line on this plug, so you know not to go past it. Because if your solder goes out past it, it isn't going to work. And we're just going to put a little drop of solder on it, just like so. I don't know if that camera's picking that up. But there's actually a line on it, and you see it just got cold. There's a line on it that lines up with these tabs right here. If you go out past it, you're going to have your pocket knife out and you're going to be trying to trim it when you go to put it back in its plastic connector piece. So don't do that. Next, generally I use a pair of pliers for this, but we're going to try to do it without them. You're basically going to spin this around here, and what you want to do is lay your wire on there to basically where you're going to put it. Again, I've tried using different things. I just find a magazine base works just fine to get it to absorb the heat, because if it gets too hot or it doesn't get hot enough, or whatever you're laying it on is sucking up the heat faster, it takes longer to do it. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay this soldering iron right across this top wire here, and I'm going to hold it to it, and it's going to turn that solder back hot. It's going to melt it, and then it's going to melt what's on that tab. And as soon as it melts what's on that tab, like I said, generally I have a pair of pliers here and I'm holding this wire, but you'll see it all turn shiny again like it's wet, and you'll pull it away from it. Blow on it a little bit, it'll instantly turn back cold, and you have a nice shiny connector connected well. I'll get you a picture of that so you can see a little better without the camera, but that's all there is to it. And you'll try to get this repeatedly. Some people have a knack for it, some don't. I have a feeling I was one of the ones that didn't. But since I got this new track power station and everything, it's made life a lot easier when it comes to soldering. I don't mind doing it. So I think it has a lot to do with your equipment. If you're having problems with it, I would suggest spin the 65, get the track power, then see what you can do with it. Now this was 14 gauge wire, I believe. it's fairly easy to solder with, to practice on and stuff. Now as you get up to the bigger 10 gauge or 8 gauge wiring, then you're going to have to leave that soldering iron on that wire just a little bit longer in order to get that wire to heat up enough to suck that solder up inside of it. But all in all, at the end of the day, that's pretty much what I do. That's the system I use, the things and the items that I use. So hope this helps somebody out. If it does, great. If somebody wants to criticize it or say I should be doing it this way or that way, that's fine, let them. But this is the way I do it. It works for me, and I'm going to continue doing it this way unless I find a better way of doing it. And right now, like I said before, it'd take me 15 minutes to do a battery plug. It takes me less than 5 now, so I'm happy with the way the system's working. So y'all have a good evening. I'm going to go in the house and get me some supper.